Doctor was frozen where he knelt, not because of the ice wind howling through the catacombs, but for the realization of where he had found himself. Not only was he a brand new man with a different feel about him, he was about to come face to face with an enemy so familiar yet deadly that his less than average brain at this moment in time was trying to work out what to do next. The stomps were getting louder, but he had seconds to react. Does he try and hide amongst the decaying bodies lay in front of him? Does he run? Does he surrender? One of these answers would save him from the Cybermen, but which? Time was ticking by, his heart's beating faster and faster the closer he came to making a decision, when out of nowhere they stopped. Somewhere else inside the cave. He could hear them communicating, talking as if they were scanning for something. Were they here for him? These Cybermen shouldn't even know who he is, given the way time flows for him. He quickly extinguished his fire torch and hid in the dark, trying to find somewhere to get closer in to listen to what the Cybermen were talking about. Impossible, he muttered to himself. There must be something else in the cave they're hunting, and now they found them. Something else had run into the cave and hidden from the Cybermen. It must be a Mondasian. Whatever it was hidden well, and they were scanning for its life sign. It was in this moment he was glad of being a Time Lord. With a different makeup, they would never scan for two hearts. To get a closer look, the Doctor found himself on a small ledge and perched himself on it. By all the blazes, whatever came into the cave looked like a child, a Mondasian child. The horror began to mount, the rage of the Time Lord boiled. They were hunting rebel Mondasians for conversion. He had a good idea about what time period he was in as well. It must be between 1984 and 1986 Earth years. These were almost in their prime Cybermen, ready to invade Earth in the very near future, where the very first Doctor was out there somewhere about to meet these awful creatures. Does he save the child, or does he let fate do her thing? When in the blink of an eye he was spotted, and the laser shot out of the Cyberman, damaging exactly where he was perched. The Doctor fell, breaking his hand as he fell into the cold ice of the cave. The Cybermen slowly walked into the void and stood ready to execute him. The Doctor looked up with his broken hand and noticed a familiar orange glow erupting from his body. He was in luck. He was within his 15-hour regeneration cycle. The Cyberman stopped in confusion. It had never met a being before being able to do this. The Doctor looked it straight in the eye and erupted the orange glow towards him with all of his might. Both of the Cybermen circuits began to overload and they fell on their backs, out of power. The Doctor stayed knelt down, trying to catch his breath after that spontaneous outburst. He looked up and the child was staring back at him, trying to catch his breath as well, out of panic and almost a sense of awe. They exchanged looks when the Doctor got to his feet before falling back over into the snow. The child rushed over to see if he was okay, and while he stood there looking over the raggedy man in ripped clothing who had just saved his life, he was the first child of Mondas to witness the miracle of regeneration. The Doctor gave the child a nod in acknowledgement for his efforts before he ran off into the dark. The Doctor called after him in an effort to keep him from the Cybermen, but alas, the child had run away. Alone in the cold, the Doctor got up and he felt a little better, and he headed over to the Cybermen. Looking down at their still faces, still and emotionless, he had flashbacks to Bill and Nardole aboard that ship that felt like a very, very long time ago. He realised in that moment that the Cybermen were an elemental part of his tragic past. They had hounded him in nearly every incarnation, devastated Gallifrey and countless other worlds throughout this realm and others. He was now beginning to understand why he felt so different back in the TARDIS. He was going to be a Doctor full of regret, full of resentment, full of remorse. These Cybermen would soon abandon Mondas and head to his beloved Earth, where they would meet the original Doctor and they would be defeated. But in that moment, their anger would begin to grow and he would fight them countless other times across many worlds and many different timelines. The cause and effect paradox. He had an opportunity in this little dwelling on Mondas to discover their secrets and exploit them, to end the Cybermen before the invasion begins. The ripple effect would cascade throughout space-time. The Cybermen would never leave Mondas and steer it towards his beloved Earth. Would it work, he thought? Could he do it? Should he do it? He's puzzled over this option many times before with countless other species, but each time he had taken the high road. But maybe now time should run her own course. He found himself here by accident, of course. Time was clearly beginning to rumble and crack around him. Events established were now being changed, even ever so slightly. His presence on this planet was not part of original events, and if they were, that means his lives had all been decided for him by someone or something. That would mean no matter what he did, it wouldn't matter, unless that's what he'd always done. He reached into his torn coat pocket, looking for the sonic screwdriver, which luckily he found after a frantic search. He opened the chest plates and removed them to confirm his fears. These were organic Cybermen, both body and soul. On the side of the plate were 6 numbers: 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. This must be a serial code from the factory floor. If he was between 1984 and 1986, then these must be one of the very first Cybermen, both body and soul, a prototype. That explains why they're hunting Mondasians. They don't think they're doing anything wrong. They're trying to get their people and save them. That little child obviously knew of the dangers, and perhaps something has gone wrong in the conversion process. Maybe the pile of bodies inside this derelict cave were the rebels, or even failed first attempts at cyber conversion. He glanced down at his almost broken pocket watch that clearly his previous incarnation had grown very fond of, and realised that the TARDIS was his only option. Maybe he'd already changed the course of destiny on this planet when he destroyed the Cybermen just a few moments prior. Night was drawing in and the cave was slowly filling with empty blackness. He decided that he would rest in this cave, waiting for the morning. Day broke, and the doctor made a small recovery. He felt a lot more energetic than he had before, and he was hoping his TARDIS would be ready for him to leave. He was desperate to get out of these torn, battered clothes from his previous incarnation and wanted to have a shower. Looking outside, the Predators and the Cybermen he'd noticed had left him alone. He made a dash for it, legging it out of the icy cave of Mondas into the wastelands towards his beloved blue box. He heard the screeches from above once again. The doctor didn't give up. He ran and ran and ran, his legs now stronger than before, his stamina longer than before, and his determination to survive right at the brink. Through the thick fog and snow, he thought he was getting closer and closer to his police box. It wasn't to be found anywhere. Taking out the sonic, he scanned for her Artron energy signature, but she wasn't around anywhere to be seen. With the snow falling fresh, it began to cover up signs of footprints in the snow. Had the Cybermen found the TARDIS? Time would unravel if they learned of the TARDIS, the Doctor, the Time Lords, Gallifrey, all of it before they were supposed to. The old girl had been taken into the Mondasian installation nearby, somewhere west of his current position in the wastelands. Starting to feel the cold and his TARDIS taken, he took a hike to the city of the Cybermen. Upon arrival, it looked derelict, almost isolated, and mainly ruined. The atmospheric changes on Mondas had definitely torn this place apart. These people were no longer the space veterans they once were. They were actually left to rot. Down on the streets there were clear signs of firepower and even struggle. These Mondasians were not open to cyber conversion. They wanted to keep their humanity, or at least what was left of it. The snow calmly lay to rest over some sadly dead people, street signs, and the chaos that had ensued perhaps even days, months, or even weeks prior. The doctor felt so much anger swell inside him, but he was powerless to their fate. Who knows how these people were feeling when this was happening to them? In the distance, the stomps came again. There were many more in formation, more than there were in the cave. To his haste, the doctor ran and hid in the doorway of a local shop. He's well covered, and he was watching the Cybermen stomp their way into the city looking for survivors. The closer and closer they got to his position, the more he thought he was going to get found out. The web of time would unravel if they laid their hands on him. Formations of 10, maybe even 12, marched together like Nazi soldiers into the heart of the city, and then they suddenly stopped. Frozen in animation, almost awaiting orders, their silver suits almost camouflaged into the background of the snow. What were they up to? The Doctor found himself asking. The round metal things on top of their heads began to fire out in all directions, with sounds of destruction echoing back. The fire began to rage in the distance when they stopped, and the bellowing voice of the cyber leader let out a name. Finally, they had found who they were looking for all along. The cyber leader called out one word: Doctor.